in the blank. You're not getting any younger, so...
So stop second guessing something you want to do and just do it.
Hey you! Yes, you! Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. A podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives. For a good reason. To make it count. I'm your host, Jen Glantz. And every week, I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people, just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? Hey, any youngers. Happy post-Thanksgiving. I hope you stuffed yourself silly, took plenty of midday naps, and didn't drain too much of your savings account doing Black Friday shopping. I tried not to, but I did splurge on a set of glass Tupperware, which made me feel like I truly adulted hard this year. This week's episode is all about how to fight loneliness and start connecting with people no matter who you're with, where you are, or how much you find yourself as an introvert. Our guest is Sumner, the founder of Quilt, and she shares her journey from being a matchmaker to starting a company that brings strangers together inside of a stranger's house. I know it sounds strange, but I promise you it's not strange at all. I hope you enjoy. And make sure you subscribe and rate and review this podcast on iTunes. And if you want, and I truly hope you do, come hang out with us in the secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group. I'll see you there. This week's episode is sponsored by jenglantz.com, where you can find a handful of my coaching services on sale for Black Friday and Cyber Monday this week only. Have you ever wanted to quit your job, start a business, or figure out how to strategize your life and your to-do list? Visit jenglantz.com and click on the Black Friday tab. There's something big waiting for you. I have to tell you, the first sentence of your bio really popped out at me. You say that you have a need to fight loneliness, both in yourself and others. How did you identify that need?
I think that, this is something that comes back. I felt very alone growing up. I felt like there were things that I wanted to do with my life, and I wasn't necessarily in a town that was supportive of like an ambitious woman. And I moved to New York City at a really young age and kind of grew up really quickly. And all of my career trajectory has looked so much like I was a matchmaker. I've been a community developer. There's a lot of those kind of experiences now embedded in Quilt itself. And what I always realized was this fascination that I had with kind of human behavior and how we can all define what feeling connected is like for each of us. It can be different, right? My need to connect might be, a coffee with one person a week, and someone else's might be constant interaction, and all of that I think is really healthy. It's just how we understand what it means for ourselves. And I feel like I've spent kind of the past 10 years on this quest to understand what it means to feel connected to people around me, what, being vulnerable looks like, intimacy looks like, and being open to kind of new connection and where that can lead. And so that's just been, whether it's been personal or professional, I've been fascinated by understanding and getting to the bottom of what makes people feel connected. And on the opposite side of that is if they feel alone, in some of the things that they're going through. And I have this genuine passion of helping them fight that.
I really love that, and I think loneliness is a topic that a lot of people are scared to talk about. Do you think that in the last 10 years since you've been on this mission that more and more people, as they find other unique ways to connect with technology, find themselves being extra lonely?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think what technology has done is it's put the power in our hands to connect with others. I think what it's lacked is us having the tools like the actual personal soul level tools of what it is that our needs are. So I think there's our individual work that we have to do. And then I think, and as we've done with Quilt, technology can facilitate helping you get there faster and maybe more efficiently. But there's been an onus that's been laid on tech to replace something. And that's where I think the breakdown comes. So how we show up and how we choose to engage with others, and then how we use technology to help us get there, I think is a really healthy use of technology. Thinking that leaning on technology is going to replace this like offline desire for human interaction and physical touch and just feeling seen by someone in person, that's something tech can't do. And that's what kind of led to building Quilt with my business partner, because we really felt that technology could facilitate offline connection and not try and replace it.
I'm happy to hear that because I find that I get my loneliness. I get super lonely when I am on technology and I'm looking at everybody else's life. And I think people
Mm-hmm.
would look at my life on technology and social media and never guess for a second that I feel any kind of loneliness, because loneliness doesn't show when you're on social media, right? So for people out there who are feeling lonely, who feel like they can't make those connections, what is the best way for them to begin admitting that? And what should they do next?
It's funny. I have quite a few. There's a few women on our team that have recently done kind of the social turning off their Instagram or deleting it or not getting into that comparison mindset. And I think it all comes from this place of feeling connected and empowered to your own skills and gifts and what you're confident in. So I think the work that we do to know who we are, to understand what the value is that we bring to ourselves and to others, is helps kind of lay the foundation to then go and see like, oh, this, whether or not this other woman on, through technology on Instagram looks like she's having this fabulous life, it doesn't trigger, what we feel like is missing in our own. And I think that that's all the work that we can do on an individual level. And then it doesn't matter whether or not that woman is happy or not. You can just send her, the positive vibe that you want to give her, and wish her the best. And it helps remove us from that scarcity mindset. It's that idea that if I'm something, that means, that I don't want someone else to be that thing. When in fact, like that's the thing that connects us. And I think women, our nature is really to lean into being more collaborative than being competitive. But unfortunately, we haven't been in the environments that have supported that. And I think something like Instagram, as an example, is one of those environments that hasn't necessarily supported it. But what we can do is take ownership over shifting the way we celebrate one another and just using technology as an extension of that. So in those moments where it's like, gosh, she has something I don't, thinking, I'm so happy that she has that, and I do have that, and kind of the more kind of positive outlook perspective that we can take.
You're so right. It's not a compare and a contrast. It's more of a wow, good for you. I genuinely mean that. But then also good for me. And if there are things in my life that I'm lacking or I want to chase, it can even give you motivation to go further after that. So I really love how you just explained that because it puts it into perspective a ton. Your
Mm-hmm.
first career out of college was a bit unusual. You were a matchmaker. How in the world did that happen? And what
Yeah.
was it like being a matchmaker?
Oh man, it was a blast. It's definitely a conversation starter. I use the language. It's like I didn't know why it was happening then, but I know now. The universe has set up my career path in a really beautiful kind of zigzaggy way that makes all the sense in the world 10 years later. But I fell into it. I had a dear friend out of college who was working at a startup matchmaking company. I actually the first way into it was her setting me up with one of their first clients, who ended up being a man I dated for many years. And through that experience, I fell in love with him, but also this idea that somebody could be thinking about two people, putting them together, and putting that much energy into a match. And I ended up working for the company. I was their third employee, and it was just during the process. I was really focused on finding men that wanted to kind of on the male side of things. And it was during that process, as they become clients, that I'd be like having these like sparks and ideas of who they should be connected to, and then they'd get married, and it just realized that it was a gift, and that gift could translate not just on the romantic side of things, because I did have, I was in that space for 5 years, but I did see myself kind of venturing beyond being a romantic matchmaker, because it was something I just fell into. And I realized I could use the same gift in making introductions for businesses, for building communities, for just understanding how two people, 15 people, 50 people should be brought together. And it was the starting point. It was just the little seed that planted this entire career that I've now had in this industry. So
So awesome. And I've been to a matchmaker before, and people can say what they want about matchmakers, but they listen to you and they
they
ask
really
you
do.
questions that nobody else asks you. And when I went to them and they said, what are you looking for? I had word vomit of all of these things. I didn't know. I didn't know. What did you find that a lot of people would come to you and say they wanted? And what did you realize that they really wanted in other human beings?
It's funny. I think when you get to that point of a matchmaker, you feel like you've exhausted all other options. And the shift I'd like to offer there is, I think it's a yes and. If you really want to meet someone, why not go out and try all the ways, right? Why not increase the optionality pool in order for the right one to kind of come along? What I will say is, because I think people did it as a last option, they had some dating fatigue. And through the dating fatigue, they get to this place of saying, well, I want this and I want that, but not this and not that. And their list ended up being a bit longer than maybe at the beginning of the journey. And so my experience was always around, okay, you're telling me you want this super specific thing. What I'm going to do to build trust with is put that person in front of you. And then we're going to collect feedback every time. And through that experience, maybe one of them is your soulmate, maybe not. And when you trust me, you're going to let me throw you a curveball, because I'm going to have this energetic feeling around actually why you should meet this person. Maybe they don't have red hair, maybe they don't have an Ivy League education, maybe they're not a creative, whatever they kind of deemed was the result that they were looking for. And it was so often that in those moments where they just trusted me to make a connection based off of my own intuition, that was really the person that they ended up with. So I think we do the same thing with my company now. It's like, you have to create a safe environment that people trust. They have to respect you until they're willing then to take a risk. And I think in that risk, when they feel safe, something magical can really happen. And that's also the same tactic I use on building community.
Do you feel, and I truly believe this, but I want to know what you feel. Do you feel that they find it easier to be more open and honest with strangers than, say, good friends in their life?
Totally. I mean, I'm just like dying. So in the first couple of years, I'd have coffee, like these one-on-one coffees or drinks with men and women. And honestly, I met with thousands. Like, I have an Excel spreadsheet of thousands of people I had conversations with. And I sat there, and I was 21 to 26 years old during this time. And I was meeting with anyone from 23 to 67-year-old. And the amount, yes, I can give I'll like nod, I'll do a little pat on the back that I think I am somebody people like to divulge information to. But they also just were I'm like, it's for the same reason you want to pay a therapist. It's like, they're not going to hear the perspective, the judgment, the fear that they're going to think something else of them. I get to sit there, mirror back. They think of me as an expert, and they're like, if I don't tell her every single thing right now, she might not know how to set me up. So that was absolutely the case.
It's so interesting because I think it leads into what you're doing now is that you're building communities for women and you're doing it in a way where you are bringing strangers together in a very intimate environment. So please tell us about Quilt and
Yes.
what got you to start this platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Quilt, what it specifically is a platform that enables women to open up their homes to other women, and they can offer co-working. They do small group conversations, like led by specific theme topics like leadership or power or creativity, or education sessions. So experts will open their home and they will teach something, whether it's on fundraising and negotiating your worth, all the way to how to set up a meditation practice or watercoloring. This is definitely the brain baby of me and my business partner, Gianna Wurtzel. I met her. I'm from New York. She's from LA. I moved here a few years ago, expanding a community that I had helped start in its early stages called Noya House. And I had met her, and what she had started was a company called One Roof, which was taking away the commercial real estate component of co-working spaces. She felt really called to imagine a new way of gathering women around co-working. And so for her, residential properties, the home was this environment that she loved. And she took a lease out on a home in Venice Beach, and she converted it into a co-working space for female entrepreneurs. And it really became this, like, there was a heartbeat to it, in this place that women, whether they were moving there or craving community, they'd go into this home, they'd work, there was evening programming. It was such a special thing. And when I experienced it for the first time, I realized it had been something that I was missing in my professional career. And her and I had a chance for a year to really slow burn and get to know one another. And we both were feeling really called to how technology could facilitate community on a greater level. We just didn't know what that looked like. And through true ideation and collaboration and showing up and not having the answer, but committing to early mornings and late evenings while we were both still doing our day jobs, we committed to this idea of figuring it out. And over the course of 6 months and about a million Post-it notes later and a lot of Thai food, we got to this place where we realized technology could facilitate these offline intimate interactions, that this home that she'd tested, that she'd had this experience around, could actually just be, what if it was a million homes and 10 women sitting inside each all over the world? And what would that look like? I mean, that really felt like it could translate to different cultures, that it could meet different needs, from the highly ambitious woman to the aspiring woman to the woman who's been a mother who wants to get back into the workforce to a retiree. It was a way for different generations of women to come together and share their wisdom. We thought through all the things we'd been craving in community, and this was that framework, this structure that we know can help us get there. So we committed to launching it at the end of 2016, and we raised our first round of capital to get up kind of the beta test of it in 2017, and we launched officially in September of 2017.
Wow, I find it so interesting because, and one of the things I like to teach in some of my classes is that a big buzzword and a big trend for this year, next year, is that people online are bringing things offline, which is
Mm-hmm.
definitely what you're working on doing. And I think that I was thinking about that makes Quilt so unique is the home aspect, of course. I feel like our generation, we don't invite people over to our home. We don't have book clubs on our couches and we don't have women over for dinner. I feel like our generation is, where can we meet at a coffee shop or where can we go for brunch? It's so not surrounded by our home. Did you find any pushback or people saying, "Oh my goodness, homes are so private. Why not meet in coffee shops?" Did anyone call you crazy when you
Yeah.
decided to start this business?
It's funny, we thought that the hardest thing would be finding women in their homes to open it. And when we launched, we'd communicated to a list of, 2,000 women we'd both built community around. And we communicated this idea, this Airbnb meets WeWork for female entrepreneurs. And we said, like, if you're interested, let us know. Would you be a guest? Would you be a host? If you want to host, tell us more details around it, fill out this form. And within a day, we had hundreds of women writing and saying, I want to open my home. And that was this like beautiful insight that we had, that it's not new. Like women convening in homes, gathering, hosting, this desire to build community, I think is so innate in our culture and our desire. There just hasn't been this kind of larger scale opportunity to do it. And I am that person. I love hosting. I love cooking. That's where a lot of this community development desire comes from. And so I think that what there's been is just a craving for somebody to create structure around the way to do it. Maybe sparking, we design discussion guides. So a woman who loves the idea of doing it but doesn't know where to start, she can start by opening her home for an hour, and she can use this discussion guide on creativity, and all of a sudden she can stand kind of in her power and lead something in a way she maybe never has before. So the home is, gathering in the home is not new. Women convening in circles is also not new. But what I do feel is, like, it hasn't been modernized, and it hasn't been at scale. And I think that we're really focusing on the way that it can be kind of reignited.
Yeah, and I truly love that because I think that there's something to say about going to someone's house. Do you find that these women who are offering to do this and putting on these amazing workshops, do you feel like when other women enter their space, they get a better glimpse of who they are rather than if that person hosted that same workshop in a typical co-working space like the one I'm sitting in right now? How do you think the experience is enhanced by that presenter in their own home?
I think there's a lot of things. I think something I feel really connected to, and this is something that my business partner really inspired in me, is the space we're all in matters, and the spaces we've all been in has been an afterthought. Like slapping a co-working sign on a commercial building with bad lighting and fluorescent light bulbs or like weird carpet in the area, like that both affects how the guest walks into that space and how she feels. Like, is she her most creative in that space versus being in like a beautiful home environment? It doesn't have to be her own, where like she can feel comfortable and ideas can spark. And then take a woman, when you're inviting somebody into your home, there's just like a level of authenticity. You're like taking your shoes off, you're like helping yourself to water, you're serving tea, like you get to, I think, show up fully. And right now, I'm sure you're even experiencing this on the programming front. If you go and give a talk somewhere, like you're dressing in a way that they've set up, they've decided how fancy it is or not. Your legs are crossed, you're in front of people, you're maybe on display, like all of these things I think create these like weird social norms that don't necessarily allow us to break through and be super vulnerable with one another. And what we know to be true is that women are craving a deeper connection with one another to figure out kind of what's the next step they're going to take. Are they going to launch that company? Are they going to raise capital? How are they choosing to raise their children together? It's this shared kind of understanding. And we've learned that there's a bit of a tell-all that happens when it's 8 women sitting in a living room versus at a conference table.
Yeah, and I do think that there's something so interesting about how vulnerable you can be inside of someone else's house. And I do think that is because it's rare for a lot of us to go to a stranger's house and open up to them. I know sometimes when I have the pleasure of doing these podcast interviews at someone's house, I walk in there and my heart is racing because you're walking into another person's space. And then I find that 30 minutes in, I'm practically crying because you bond so much more when you're sitting inside of a place that means so much to that person. And I
Yep.
think that there truly is something really interesting to say about that. I imagine with quilt events that a lot of women who want to go alone, and that
Mm-hmm.
could be extra scary because now you're signing up to go alone to an event in someone's house. So what kind of advice do you have for that person who is like, you know what, I want to go to this event, it sounds amazing, and I want to go alone, but I am so nervous? What do they do?
Yeah, that's really fair. And it's funny, we've had a beautiful amount of what we would call success in the past year. And we often think about, these are, if safety is something that someone's thinking through, or nervousness, like imagine if that wasn't the case, how many more might come. So we think through a lot of this. We have a team, and yes, like we're technically a tech company, but we've built a team of really really wonderful, highly emotionally intelligent women that we've thought through a lot of the different ways that we as Quilt, as a company, can show up and help make a woman feel comfortable in a moment where she might not. And we'll continue to explore how our technology can do that as well. Like we made a shift when the calendar first went up. The first pictures were homes, right? If you're going to go co-work out of it, you want to see the table you're sitting at. And what happened when we added a picture of the woman, they don't even look at the picture of their home. They're just trying to figure out who this woman is and learn about her and see like if this is a person that somebody wants to have a conversation with. So the shift of just being able to see that woman, or the ability for the women to message with one another, all of these like little tips and tricks that we've now are embedding in the technology make a huge difference. And I think the fact that there's a very human experience. A woman, a quilter, a member, she knows Lee on our team. Lee is somebody she's been on the phone with. We're there kind of fielding questions and concerns. But the reality to date in the past 12 months is that that really hasn't been a thing that we've noticed as a problem. There seems to be, and I think Uber and Airbnb, there's companies that have paved the way, that have made it feel safe to go into a stranger's home or into a stranger's car. And I think because you're going into a woman's home, maybe over a man's home, there's like a level of safety around that too.
What about the women who have a little bit of social anxiety and they're sitting there thinking, I'm not the most extroverted person in the world, but I still want to bring myself to this event? What kind of things can you empower them to get themselves to just go and just talk
Yeah.
to people, even if that's not their natural mindset to do?
Well, I can tell you that this idea was created for them. So you maybe can't tell in our conversation right now, but I've struggled with my own social anxiety, and I would identify myself as an introvert. And walking into a 500-person conference with name tags and noise would oftentimes leave me wrecked. I would like go hide in the bathroom, and I would go home and be super tired the next day. And the desire to create something, it's like, this is one woman opening her home. You're going to be in a home. There's going to be maybe no more than 8 women sitting there, and it's going to be a facilitated experience where you're going to get to hear every other woman's story, and you don't have to ask the first question. All of that was designed with that woman's needs in mind. Because I still to this date have never walked up to somebody and sparked the conversation first. I've done all these things to get them to come talk to me. But the whole quilt experience, from the moment you come to the website to the moment you walk through the door to the welcoming email that comes afterwards that connects you, actually was created so that this isn't just community for extroverts to excel, but that you feel comfortable doing it.
I am so sold. I too feel like I have social anxiety and I
Yeah.
can be an introvert. And, it's always so hard for me to drag myself to events sometimes. But I love when events like how Quilt does it makes it so that, you're not just walking into a room and you have to figure it out. There's a guide to it, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
conversation starters. But as someone who also has social anxiety, do you have any personal tips for our listeners for how you boost yourself up to go, 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 especially when it can be extra hard for you?
Yeah, I've had to learn how to listen to my body a bit better, because I can get really run down and really tired and, sick sometimes, too, with so much human interaction. So I tend to structure my days a bit differently. So I used to like wake up, go right to the gym, engage super early, and I'm actually my most creative in the morning. So now, like with my team and the things I do, I often am not interacting with others before 10 or 11 a.m. so that I have this like super quiet time before. And I end my day in a super quiet state too. And I've been noticing that I have a more steady pace and charge kind of around that. I choose not to. I get invited to large gatherings all the time, and I just don't go. It's just I don't feel good. I don't feel authentic. I feel like you're yelling over someone. So I think you have to do a bit more work. But what I will say is, I think more intimate gatherings are becoming popular. And don't put yourself in an environment you think you have to be in because you think others are doing it and that's how they're being successful. I would urge, for the same reason we built Quilt, I think you can design your day to meet your own needs. And we all have to kind of step in our own confidence and say, you know what, I'm not going to go to that co-working space because it's 80% male. It's actually freezing. The lighting sucks. But I don't want to be home alone. So now I am going to go to Quilt, or I am going to reach out to a friend and go to a coffee shop. I think feeling like there are no options for you can be an easy reaction, but sometimes it just takes like a little more effort and some kind of creative thought to imagine where you would feel best and then go there.
I'm really glad you said that and you were so honest about it because it's true. If there are big events like that where you're not going to be productive, it's not going to be good for you, don't force yourself to go, like
Yeah.
you're not going to get anything out of it. And I think so few people are as honest and as vulnerable as you are. And I totally appreciate that. I have just a couple more questions for you, and one of them is that I was stalking you on Medium, reading some of your articles, and
Hmm.
you wrote about failing and how you failed a lot in your 20s. And this is a
Hmm.
question that I love to ask my guests, but is there a moment of failure that has stuck with you throughout the years, and how did you eventually get over it?
Yeah. It's funny. I just got goosebumps. I started this conversation with you talking about like how hard I was on myself in my 20s because I knew there was this like spark or this energy inside of me to create something, and I have an immense amount of fire. Um, and and I was confused. In my 20s, I'm very hard on myself. I've struggled or battled with this idea of perfectionism, as I think so many of us do. And I have had a hard time kind of standing in my own light because of how hard I have been on myself to be better. And I can take it back. I was in a career where I started at one company. I really started to find my stride, what I was really good at, what my gifts were, and having confidence in that. But I think as anyone is new, when you're just feeling something new for the first time, we sometimes seek for validation around us. It's easy to fall into the trap of, do other people think that too, which I kind of urge a lot of people, tell a lot of people not to do, but it is hard. And the one failure I feel like I can communicate, which was I didn't stand up for myself in a moment where there was jealousy or some interactions that were happening in a professional setting, and the head of HR actually sat me down. And the reason these things happen is so that something like Quilt can happen and you can meet your business partner and you can put yourself in a healthy environment. But she sat me down and she told me that I was shining too bright, and that the success that I was having within this company was rubbing my colleagues the wrong way. So she asked me to do less.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is a woman I really, really respect and admire and love. And she was in a really tough spot, and that was a culture that was super unhealthy, and that comes from the top down. But in that moment, I cried and internalized everything. I internalized it to think that I was the problem, and it's a narrative I've played out now for some years that I feel like I've done a lot of healing around. But in that moment, my reaction could have been like, this is wrong. Like, that's not true. And I could have thought beyond, the words that were being spoken to me. But I actually just kind of crumpled and felt misunderstood and didn't feel seen. And it has perpetuated a story that I've now had to work many years on. And I ended up I left the company. I felt so icky that I left. And that felt like a failure in that moment because I didn't authentically lean into communicating. But at the same time, leaving was a result of me meeting my business partner, using the fire from that and stepping into making sure that those aren't environments that other women end up in. So there's always a positive spin.
Wow, Ashley, that is an incredible moment because I think a lot of people can relate to being in a meeting with someone saying something to them, and in the moment, they don't have anything to say back, they don't defend themselves, and they walk out of there and regret that for ages. And I've been in similar situations too, and you know what? I think looking back now, that situation probably only empowers you now to keep on standing up for yourself and fighting for yourself. And it's such a shame that it had to happen like that, but it's also so powerful because you know it's never going to happen again. And now you can help other women make sure it doesn't happen again too. And I think that that's the silver lining in a story that's
Mm.
just so gritty like that.
Yeah, you get it. I love that you get it.
I feel you. I have one more question for you. Are you
Yeah.
ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Fill in the blank. You're not getting any younger, so
Ooh, you're not getting any younger, so stop second guessing something you want to do and just do it.
I love it, Ashley. Thank you so much. Please tell our listeners where they can find out more about you and Quilt.
Yes, so Quilt. WeQuilt.com is our website. Our Instagram handle is We Are Quilt. And we love you to come and have your first experience. You'll quickly hear from either me or my business partner or Lee or Gracie or anyone else on our team. That's wonderful. And you can reach out to us there. We're available to talk and to guide you through your first experience.
Amazing, Ashley. Thank you so much for doing this. It was so great chatting with you.
Thank you.
Hey, you. Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for a good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.